I'm Nina Soden, urban fantasy author of the Blood Angel series and the Sector C series. And today I have Frederick Pangbourne with me. He recently retired and now resides in Florida. As an ex-Marine, he has been a fan of the horror genre since childhood in both literature and in films. We will talk a little bit about the books and the films that he likes the most. He has 3 horror anthologies of his own out in publication and is currently working on the 4th. His latest is Nightmares of the Damned. This is what it looks like. There is a little bit of a glare. And we will be doing a giveaway of this book for this video. So if you want a chance to win a copy of Nightmares of the Damned, go ahead, comment below, like this video, and subscribe to my channel. But make sure you comment below or I won't know you want a copy. All right, Fred, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. Welcome to my channel. So tell me first a little bit about how you got into writing. Okay, you're an ex-Marine. My family has Marines. Love them. God love them. You guys are good people. Why writing horror? Why go from military to writing horror?
I loved writing ever since I was in grade school. Used to love English, writing little compositions of short stories. I've been doing that for the longest time, maybe just out of pleasure.
Okay.
And then with the horror genre, I kind of like leaned toward that.
So what is your favorite horror book?
Oh, that's a tough. I love H.P. Lovecraft. I love all his stuff. So probably I have to say anything by him I love.
Okay. And what is your favorite film?
That's a tough one. There's so many good ones out there. Off the top, it's hard to say. That's a tough question.
Okay, I'm stumping you at all ends. All right, let's talk a little bit about your type of horror. Do you lean more towards the gory, scary monsters, or do you lean more towards the psychological, in your head type of horror?
More toward like the supernatural stuff.
Okay.
And like H.P. Lovecraft, I guess, his philosophy I always felt was no one survives. Like man always loses at the end.
Okay.
And that's what I kind of steer towards when I write a story. You always think the person's going to get out at the end, it's going to be a happy ending, and then it turns out just the opposite. He's another victim.
So you don't like the happy ending at all?
Once in a while, but I usually like those, like if you read movies, that twist ending, you think the person's made it out, and then far from it.
Yeah. So, okay, so I just got your book in the mail recently, and I picked it up today and thought I need to get a feel for what you write. And I opened it up to It's Right Behind You. So this is the only short story I've read so far, and it has intrigued me, and I will be reading the rest of them. Absolutely. Tell me what the inspiration was for It's Right Behind You.
I think I was watching something on TV, and there was a daughter-father relationship, and there was a lot of animosity and it wasn't going well. And I just try to do something different off of that with a horror twist at the end. Yeah. Like in most of my stories, I try to. So that's what I forgot what I was watching, but it just inspired me. It was something different. It just struck me out of the blue.
So there are a number of stories in this book, so I'm not going to give any spoilers that will ruin the book for anybody, but we are going to talk a little bit more about this story. Okay. So it's about a woman, Rose, who gets willed a house by her dead father, who she hasn't seen in 20 plus years. And I'm telling, not like you don't know this, I'm telling the viewers, just to make that clear. And she gets there, she sits there, she has to stay in the house from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. and not leave. And she has to do it alone. And you're thinking, okay, I'm reading it, I'm thinking, okay, it's a haunted house, or her father is just this cruel and would want her to stay in a haunted house. Why does he hate her so much? And my whole time I'm thinking, if he loved her, he wouldn't make her do this. And then she finally makes it into the study around 1 something in the morning. And we read this ridiculous note from her father saying he's been cursed and there's evil. And you're thinking, what an ass. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, he's going to make this up. And she thinks the same thing. She's like, oh, this is how he's going to try to make up for being the terrible father that he was. But it turns out, like you said, in the end, nobody survives. There's this evil thing and it grabs her and then you're done. We don't get to see, we don't get to like read and experience what happens to her. We just have to accept that the dad was right and he put her in this situation and she's done. And I have to say, it was awesome because I was on the edge of my seat the whole time wondering what the haunting was, like what was going to happen. And absolutely nothing happened until the very end.
A lot of times I don't feel the need to explain every single detail and why I think they're happening. I leave it up to the reader. Everybody has their own interpretation.
Absolutely.
So I leave it up to them.
And I loved the fact that my brain was just going with, oh, it could be this, oh, it could be that, it could be this, it could be that, which was fantastic because what it was, I didn't guess. So that was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So tell me in this book, which story is your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
I don't remember half the stories that are in there.
So that was going to be another question of mine is, have you written so many short stories that you don't remember them all?
I mean, if you brought them up, I would recall them. But as per which ones are in which books, I'm a little vague on that.
Do you have a favorite out of all of your stories in any book, whatever they're in? Do you have a favorite story?
I'm sure I do in one aspect or another. But off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you which one. I enjoy them all. Some, not so much.
It's hard to pick. It's like saying, which is your favorite child, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what can your readers expect from you when they pick up your book? What do you want them to walk away with? What feeling or?
I guess being enjoying the stories. I love telling stories just to captivate somebody. And like you said, have them to the very end trying to figure out what's going to happen. And then maybe just throw a twist in there.
Yeah. So why short stories? As an author, I find short stories to be harder to write than I do novels because I have more time, more space to actually finish the story. Why short stories?
I'm just the opposite. For me, a short story, it's like a roller coaster ride. It's quick and it's exciting and it's done.
Yeah.
Move on to the next one. Like to actually sit down there and like Stephen King's It, that thing's like a phone book. I couldn't sit there and write one story for years like that. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, but he pumps them out like.
Yes.
It's as if he writes that huge novel like once a month. It's like, seriously, they just keep coming. They keep coming.
That's like my Mount Everest. Like I could not sit down there and write a whole book. It's like, I want something short and sweet. Let's move on to the next thing.
So how long does it take you from I have an idea to done, edited, perfect, ready for publication for each short story?
It depends. I'll sit down there and start jotting notes down on paper. And then, kind of putting a foundation, filling it out. And it could take, sometimes I've written stories within a few days. It just comes to you, you're hooked on it. Yeah. And other ones I've got to think, which direction can I take this in?
Okay.
So it all depends.
And do you just kind of have a bunch of short stories that you're working on, or do you work on one at a time?
I actually have notes I take. I have a little app on my phone. And as soon as I think of a good ending, I usually think of the ending first, a good twist ending, and then try to lead up to that.
Okay.
So I'll talk into the phone, leave notes, and I'll see something else. I'll be my next. So I have a list of basic premises for stories.
Yeah.
I've got about 5 or 6 of them. And then when I get around to it, I pick the one that kind of grabs me first. I try to work on that.
And when you put together an anthology, do all of the stories inside of it kind of have a common theme, or is it just, oh, I've got 25 stories, I'm going to throw these ones together? I mean, do they have a...
throw them together. There's no really theme, like they all are based around the same premise or anything like that.
So how do you come up with a title of a book like that then?
It's right behind you. I forgot where I came up with that. It was just, man, that'd be a cool name for a story. Like, it would intrigue you right off the bat, like what's behind them. So
right. And that's the story, but the book is called Nightmares of the Damned. How do you come up with a title of a book if all of the stories are random, if they don't relate to something specific?
Off the top of my head, I'll have a few different ideas. I'll write them down. Then I'll actually get on Amazon and look. And initially, it was going to be called what was going to be called originally? Once Upon a Nightmare, I was going to call it.
Ooh.
But then I got on Amazon, and there was a few books under that title. I'm like, nah, I really don't want to. So I said, let me try to think of something already. Just thought, writing different ideas down. Eventually, I just came up with that.
Okay. All right. So how long have you been writing? You said it since childhood, but how long since you've actually...
2019.
Okay.
2019.
And you have how many books published already?
Just 3. I mean, I have a lot of short stories in other anthologies. I kind of enjoy that, sending single stories out, being with other authors and in magazines, but only 3 books. But I got about 50 or 60 stories out total.
Okay. I love how you say only 3. It's only been 2 years, Fred. 2 years, 3 books. I'm just saying.
I got a lot of free time. I'm retired. I got a lot of free time in my hand. I watch a lot of TV. Okay. I can draw ideas from anything. You know, you're watching TV. Oh, that'd be a great idea. Let me just put a little twist to that. Well, and I'll write that down.
And Stephen King said, and I'm going to completely misquote him, but it was something like, if you're not seeing multiple stories in your daily life on a daily basis, you're not a real writer. If you're not pulling multiple story ideas, because there's story ideas everywhere and they're all around you. So I totally get the idea of I can get ideas from anywhere. I get inspiration from the strangest places sometimes. And I think that that's what we as creatives, what we have as authors, what we have as artists do. Okay, so you wrote your first book. You started writing heavily in 2019, and your first book was published when?
I think the summer of 2019.
Okay.
They got published, but I only submitted like 8 or 9 stories because I never wrote before, so I didn't know. And then when I saw the size of the book, how small it was, I was like, "Whoa, let me try to follow up with another book really quick." So I wrote like crazy. Yeah. And came up with another 8 stories. I just felt like I was gypping the reader. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
I didn't realize how short, how thin the book was going to be. So
this one's hefty.
That one's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot.
That was a lot of stories.
A good chunk of stories in this one. So when did you first consider yourself an author? And I think that being a writer and being an author are 2 different things to a lot of people. So when did you first say, I'm an author?
I guess when you submit like a short story or something and it's accepted. Like, oh, I guess I am kind of good where, someone on a professional level, who's running a publishing company accepts it.
Yep.
Because everybody thinks that, they have the writing ability, they can write. But when you get accepted, I guess,
it means something.
Yeah, to me it did at least.
Yeah. No, that I have written 1 short story. 1.
Okay.
1. Because it's harder for me. Short stories are harder for me. And it got accepted into an anthology, which is awesome. I thought, I did it. I'm good. I'm done with short stories. Because it took more energy in the short amount of time it took to write. It took more energy to do that than it did, I think, a novel.
Really? I'm just the opposite. Yeah. Just the opposite.
So you self-published this one. You're an indie author, yes?
Yeah, that one's picked up by Breaking News Publishing, yes.
Oh, so this is traditionally published?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And why did you go the traditional published route as opposed to self-publishing?
That is still, self-publishing is still new to me and everything. So I don't fully, it's easier for me to submit something to someone else I
Okay.
know that sounds kind of lazy, and
No.
have them accept it, and then they run away with it at that point.
So how has that process been for you then? Like when you submitted and it got accepted and you know they were publishing, have they been marketing the book? How have they helped you as an author to get your books out there?
They have. I'm mostly slacking in that department.
Okay.
I still consider myself like a no name. Like there's
Okay.
so many. Once you get into it and you look, there are so many authors out there doing the same thing you're doing,
Yeah.
like thousands. So I'm slacking in that department. I got to admit, self-promoting and everything, which is why I'm doing this now. But it's my fault. But they've been doing their share.
Okay. So is that the hardest part of being an author for you? Is the self-promotion and getting the books out there?
Yeah, yeah. Writing is not the problem. That's the idea. You're cranking things out. That's easy. But trying to convince someone or trying to have them check out your stuff, that's a little difficult for me.
Yeah. It's important to get reviews, and I think that that can be a very difficult thing. It doesn't matter how many books you sell if nobody wants to write a review. So, for all of you watching out there, if you have read a book recently and you didn't write a review, go write a review. Amazon, Goodreads, it is important to us, whether we are self published or traditionally published authors, it is important. All right. So, tell me a little bit about your writing process. Clearly, it's going to be different than it is for somebody who's writing a novel. But are
Mm.
you a pantser or are you a plotter? Do you outline? Do you do that kind of stuff? Or is it just a little bit of notes and start writing?
A little bit of both. There's other times I'll like fly by the seat of my pants. I really don't know where it's going, how to get from point A to point B. I'm like, I'll figure it out as I'm writing, as I'm sitting down. And other times, like I said, I write ideas down and I write like little chapters, like what's going to happen next, what's going to happen. I'll just follow that guideline
Yeah.
and get to the end. So it's a little bit of both.
And which one do you prefer?
Kind of the lazy route. I shouldn't say lazy, but I enjoy when everything's written out in front of me.
Okay.
And I just got to fill in the gaps from, the first step to the next one. I fill in the gap, go to the next one, and then eventually I'm done.
Okay. I don't think that's a lazy route. I mean, you had to take the time to actually do the outline. So,
True.
All right. So tell me a little bit about what we can expect next from you. I know this is your latest one. And when did this come out?
That came out, I think, last summer, last fall,
Okay.
I believe. Yeah.
And when can we expect something new from you, and what will that be?
I got to get my butt in gear, to be honest with you. I have like 10 stories now set aside that are completed. I'm working on another one now.
Okay.
And like I said, I have a lot of ideas, guidelines for other stories. I just need to sit down and get cracking on them. That's all. It's me again being lazy, retired life. It's like
You're retired. You're kind of allowed. That's, you've worked, you kind of are allowed to take some time and be lazy. So you are retired. You're not working at all. You are a full-time author if you want to be. So
yeah.
do you write full-time? Do you have a schedule that you write, or is it just, oh, I kind of feel inspired today, I'm going to write? Or do you set goals?
If I should sit down and commit a few hours out of the day to write, but right now I've just recently moved, so I'm still unpacking. So whenever it hits me, I sit down and try to get as much done as I can.
Okay.
But now that I'm getting a little unpacked, there's no excuse where I can't commit full time.
Has COVID affected your writing at all in any way?
Not at all. Knock on wood, not at all.
Do you think we'll see a short story from you that encompasses COVID or something like a pandemic?
If the premise or something I think about revolves around that, sure.
Okay.
But yeah, I can't. It's hard to write. So you'll see an anthology that looks for a certain theme.
Mm-hmm.
I can't sit there and say, let's say zombies. I just can't sit there and say, all right, I'm going to do a zombie story for this particular one. I can't.
Yeah.
It's got to be something that just comes to me.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about what inspires your writing. I know you get inspiration from a lot of different things, but is there anything specific, like if you just can't think of something, is there anything specific that you go to, that you do, that you listen to, watch, that kind of gets your creative juices going?
When I'm in a rut and I know if I find the right thing, a little spark, I can jump on it.
Yep.
I'll sit down there. I'll have a cocktail. I'll put on maybe like, for instance, the old Night Gallery episodes,
Mhm.
um, the Night Stalker, Cold Check, anything like the old stuff. I'll watch, and I'll see something. I'll just out of the blue, I'll get struck, and I'm like, I remind it, and I'll sit down and start writing notes again. Something just jumps me from that.
Yep. So do you have an author that you go to over and over again that you'll read multiple times the same books, or that you see their name on a bookshelf and you're like, yeah, I'll pick up that new book?
Some like I said, I love H.P. Lovecraft. There's so many. I mean, Stephen King, of course, I've been reading since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Robert Bloch is good. I love his stuff. Bud Barker, Graham Masterson. There's so many out there.
There
I
are.
used to go pretty old. What I need to do is start reading some of these newer authors, because there's so many people out there, and I'm probably missing out on a lot of good stuff.
Well, horror has changed over the years, hasn't it? I mean, even the movies, I mean, it's all changed. It's gotten, dare I say, lighter and a little bit more fantastical. I mean, it's less scary. It's still considered horror, but it's less scary, I think.
I can't speak for writing, but Hollywood itself has run out of ideas, fresh ideas. That's why you'll see remakes, or they'll steal ideas from something, and I'll get like 15 minutes into a movie. I'm like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
And I'll go watch something old from like the 70s or something. I'll go back and watch.
Well, you get into a movie. You do. And I think it's because they were original, and maybe the graphics weren't the same. Maybe it's more budget now, but so many times you watch something and you're like, haven't I watched this before? Haven't I seen this? And you haven't, but you have. Yeah. So it's a little bit disappointing when you are watching something and you realize, oh, this is just a little bit of this and a little bit of this, and they've just kind of mashed it up.
For writing, I was going to say, like Stephen King back in the day, not to knock Stephen King at all, but I loved his stuff like Salem's Lot, his short story anthologies, his old stuff I loved. But as he got older, he kind of steered away from that and went kind of in a different direction, which I guess I can see that when you wrote as much stuff as he has, eventually it's like old hat, or where are you going to go from there? You kind of go in a different direction.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot. I've read Stephen King for years. And if you've watched any of my YouTube channel or read any of my blog, I mean, he is the reason I love books.
Same here.
But I kind of died out reading his stuff for a while. And then I picked up The Outsider. And I was like, oh, this is like old Stephen King.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've read it or if you've seen the show. If you've not seen the show, read it first. Definitely read it first.
Books always better.
But always better. But I understand how you say that he's changed. He definitely has changed and adapted, but I have read a few recently that have kind of brought me back to that old Stephen King feel. Mr. Mercedes books, awesome.
Okay.
They have that old Stephen King feel. But I think that you're right. He's written so much that he kind of has to adapt. He kind of has to change.
I'm always worried about repeating myself, because you wrote like if you wrote as many books as he has, or like me with the short stories, I'm always afraid I'm going to repeat that somehow and not realize it. Like that's the same stories I just read in your other book, just a little alternation to it.
I would imagine with so many short stories, I mean, you've got 50, you said 50 published short stories.
Yeah.
That's a lot of short stories. I would imagine that you kind of have to say, wait, I've had that idea before. Did I write that again? I would worry about that too.
I'm always worried about using the same names in something. It's like, come up names at the top of your head. I'm like, I hope I didn't use that name like 10 stories ago, the same name.
Well, and also I would wonder if your readers, if you have avid readers and they're reading all of your stuff, are they connecting the dots? Like with somebody like Stephen King, all of his stories kind of connect in one way or another. There's something that connects. If you're reading an anthology of short stories and you read the previous anthology of short stories and then a name pops up and it's the same name and you're like, wait, is that the same person? So yeah,
Yeah.
that would be
We're worried
interesting.
about that.
Yeah, that would definitely be something that I would wonder about. But I have to tell you, I want to know more about what happens. And I think that's my problem and why I have such a hard time writing short stories is because when I read a short story, like it's right behind you, I want more. I want more information. I
Yeah,
want to
I
know
can
what
understand
happens.
that.
Yeah, I want to know what happens to her next. I want to know, so as a reader, I have to hope that the rest of the stories in the anthology give me enough that I'm not going to be like, okay, I'm good, as opposed to being like, God, I hate him. Why did he do that to me? Although I do love a cliffhanger, and a short story is kind of like a cliffhanger to me because
Yeah,
there's always more you could know. And I'm a
yeah.
huge fan of leaving a reader going, now what?
Leaving it up to their interpretation of how it ends.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I left an entire series on a cliffhanger and was just like, and I'm done. Like,
Sometimes it's better to leave on that good note.
that's right. That's right. That's right. All right. So, is there anything that we haven't talked about either you or your writing process or your upcoming works that you want the viewers to know about?
No, I think we basically covered everything. I just need to get my button gear, like I said, and I've been slacking. I've been kind of drifting away toward the writing
Yep.
and doing other things. And I keep telling you got to get back and write. There's no reason you shouldn't be writing right now. I'm getting lazy. But I just started another story, and I think that's going to hopefully spark everything and get me back into
Awesome.
going.
And your next anthology will come out later this year?
Yeah, definitely by this year. Definitely by this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for all of you out there watching who have made it this far in the video, please comment below so you can get a chance to win a free copy of this anthology. I will tell you, I've read one of the stories, and tonight I will be reading more because that one has hooked me. Comment below and get entered in a chance to win. And if you win, I will reach out to you for your contact information so that he can send you a copy. All right. I like to end all of my interviews with the James Lipton Inside the Actors Studio questionnaire. Super easy. It's 10 questions, hot seat style, but there are no wrong answers. And we always love questions with no wrong answers. So without further ado, question number 1, what is your favorite word?
Terror.
What is your least favorite word?
Happy.
Happy.
Well, I'm talking writing terms. We're talking.
Happy. Okay.
Yeah, nothing.
What a strange least favorite word. All right. What turns you on?
Writing. Writing is one of my passions, and I'm glad it took me so long to get to this point. I should have did this years ago.
That's
But
awesome.
writing.
What turns you off?
Being lazy like I am now, and just getting caught in the moment, not doing anything with your life. You should be concentrating on things.
You got to kick yourself in the butt, get yourself
Yeah,
going.
you need to do that sometimes. You need to.
Yes. Okay. What sound or noise do you love?
Thunder and lightning.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Alarm clocks.
Yeah. What is your favorite curse word?
The F-bomb, probably.
Okay. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I always thought acting would be cool. I don't know if I have it, but I thought being an actor, when you watch movies, you're so influenced by that, to be involved with something immortalized in film would be pretty cool.
It's fun. What career would you not want to attempt?
The one I just got out of. I was done with that.
The military?
No, military was good. I was in corrections.
Oh, okay.
That's what I retired from, and I would never do that again.
So you went from the Marines to corrections and now retired.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You were a good egg.
Nice.
You did good.
All right. That is the end of the interview, unless you have something else you want the viewers to know.
No, they can reach me either on Facebook or Instagram. Those are the two sites I'm on.
And I will share those links down below in the description. So make sure you click and follow him. I will also share a link to all of his books on Amazon. So make sure you click that and get yourself a copy. If you love horror, pick up a copy for yourself. If you know somebody who loves horror, pick up a copy for them. If you know somebody that you don't like and they hate horror, pick up a copy for them too. All right. Thank you so much. That is the end of the
Thank
interview.
you.
Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.